Apologies, I'd forgotten. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for, except for Councilman Dorito and Councilman Brady. Weren't able to make it this evening. As always, we start our meetings with Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this evening, we are fortunate enough to be able to present an Exceptional Service Award. Director Robinson, I believe you have the floor on this item.
Sir. Well, Cindy. Good evening. So, we believe all our employees are exceptional employees in public safety, but you have one come along every once in a while that just seems to really emulate that word exceptional. And as I was thinking today about how to talk about Carl and his career, I realized there's just not enough time because this guy has done so much. He started in the fire service 35 years ago, was a battalion chief, and then as I moved over eventually as 911 director. He's also become our technology savant, if you will, not only for our agency, but oftentimes for the city. He has now worked his way into a CAD RMS project manager, and that's just high-level stuff. The amount of knowledge this gentleman has is beyond anybody else I know in our agency, and as his time draweth nigh, when he does walk out the door, it is going to be irreplaceable in some of the things that he can do in knowledge and things like that. We have a kind of a company line that if we don't know, we say, ask Carl, because Carl always seems to know. But I will go beyond that personally. I've never worked with a nicer, more genuine, I want to help you guy than Carl Hall. And very important to all of us in this room, we really talk about the importance of family, and I'm so glad Cindy could be here tonight. As much as we talk about how important this job is, it's not as important as family, and Carl has always made that a priority in his life, his wife and his girls, and extended family as well, and so that makes him even a better guy in my book. And so we are honored tonight to recognize Carl Hall for 35 years of service to the city of Alpharetta. Got a couple of things here for you. Check. So your actual service award, and one more really cool thing here. Really don't want to break this. How about that? All right, now I'm going to take that from you, and I'm going to give you the microphone and let you share just a little bit.
So, and I knew this was coming for a couple of weeks, so I've been trying to say, what exactly do you say? And so I started, there's been plenty of highs and there's been plenty of lows, and I figured I would focus a little bit more on the number ones. For this career, my career with the city, the number ones have been, I was talking to Kate earlier today. First time we had a fire apparatus you could take more than 2 people on. We actually, that was a big deal for us. We had a back seat, which means we could take 3 people. However, when we started, there was just 1 guy per shift, 1 guy per station. The first cardiac arrest save was a big deal. The first time that we got an ISO 1 rating was a big deal for fire. We volunteered for years. We were stuck at, a number 7 or a number 5. Finally, we made it to number 1. That was a big deal for me to see ISO 1 on those trucks. We had, our first time that we had more than 1 station when Station 2 came about. There was a second set of tones you had to listen for. Was a big deal for us. And now we're up to 6 stations and, 100 and so employees. When Raymond, myself, and Ron Fagan started, there was 1 per shift. So all those changes have come about for the fire service, and then we moved over to 911. First 911 center in the state to have text to 911. First center in the state to do next generation 911, to move from regular copper to twisted pair, from twisted pair copper to IP phones. Then now we're working on, the project that we're on now is to go to the first cloud-based computer-aided dispatch and records management system in the state of Georgia. So hopefully we'll have that number one finished up in about the last of July, and then we'll go and see what happens next.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
So next up on our agenda this evening is boards and commissions. And we have an opening on the Alpharetta Development Authority. I'd like to recommend for our council to nominate Mr. Dan Mitnick for that appointment. He's an attorney. He's served on the Natural Resources Commission in the city of Alpharetta, and I had him have an opportunity to meet with our economic development team. They fully supported his nomination, and I'd like to put forward that name. If anyone has any questions about Mr. Mitnick, if not, I'll call for a... It is a vote. Pardon? I would accept a motion very happily.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Dan Mitnick be appointed to the Development Authority.
We have a motion by Councilman Hypes and a second by Councilman Mitchell to appoint Mr. Daniel Mitnick to the Development Authority, Alpharetta. Any discussion?
Very happy for Dan moving to the Development Authority, but I want to take just a quick second to thank him for his service on Natural Resources Commission. He really gave us all. He was president almost all the events that I had attended, and he made great contributions there, and I know that he's going to make great contributions on the Development Authority.
Thanks, sir. Any other discussion? That being said, we have a motion and a second to approve Daniel Mitnick to the Development Authority. All those in favor, please vote yes.
James Munn's not on.
There we go. And it is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Mitnick. If you don't mind, we'll go ahead and swear you in if you can come down to the front.
Is it on? Just follow that.
Oh, good. You did give him a copy. Congratulations, Dan. Thank you for your service to our community. If you will, please raise your right hand and just follow after I read it. Please do the same for yourself, okay? So this is the oath of office for the Development Authority of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia. I, Daniel Mitnick, hereby accept the honor of serving as a board member of the Development Authority of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia.
I accept the honor of serving as a board member of the Development Authority of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due to this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof.
I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due to the state or any political subdivision or authority thereof. I do solemnly swear or affirm that.
I am qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia.
I am qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia, and
I shall support the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
I shall support the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
Further, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I shall
Further, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I shall
faithfully perform the duties of a Development Authority member,
faithfully perform the duties of a Development Authority member,
regularly attend meetings, uphold the ideals of community and service, and act and conduct business in accordance with the city's codes of ethics and conduct.
faithfully perform the duties of a Development Authority member, regularly attend meetings, uphold the ideals of community and service, act and conduct business in accordance with the city's code of ethics and conduct,
And support the charter and laws of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia.
and support the charter and laws of the city of Alpharetta.
So sworn this 29th day of January, 2024.
So sworn this 29th day of January, 2024.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Next item up on our agenda this evening is the nomination election for Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a nomination?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate to re-elect as Mayor Pro Tem Dan Merkel.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? I'll just say that Dan has done one heck of a job in his career on our city council, and I fully support this nomination. All those in favor, please vote yes. And congratulations, sir, or condolences, whichever you prefer.
Depends on the day. You know that.
Congratulations, though. We're fortunate. So the next item up will be the consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the city council meeting minutes from the meeting of January 8th, 2024, the meeting of the city council planning retreat minutes, which was January 21st, 2024, the city council planning retreat minutes for the meeting of January 22nd, 2024, and the financial management report the month ending November 30th, 2023. Also have the intergovernmental agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation, City of Alpharetta for Traffic Signal Operations Program. Ms. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now is your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Motion to approve this on consent agenda.
I have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Will to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So now we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And the first item under public hearing is CU-24-01, Terra Nova Skin Clinic, 5755 North Point Parkway. Mr. Woodman, I believe you have the floor on this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first public hearing item before you this evening is a request from Terra Nova Skin Clinic. They're requesting a conditional use to operate a spa services business in a 1,115 square foot suite. It's in the North Point Park Office Park. That property is located at 5755 North Point Parkway. This is Suite 62. I do have the location map on the overhead. That property is located at the northwest corner of North Point Parkway and Rock Mill Road. North Point Park Office Condominium Park consists of 47 one- and two-story buildings. There's a variety of businesses that are currently operating in the park, including medical and professional offices. There are medical spas, commercial schools, insurance agencies, law firms, financial services, and beauty shops, as well as other personal services. Property is zoned O&I, Office Institutional, which allows spa services with approval of a conditional use. The suite that the applicant is looking at, Suite 62, that suite was previously approved for a spa service business back in 2003. The name of that business was Mango Bliss. They have since left that location, so the applicant's business would replace that previous spa services business. Terra Nova Skin Clinic is a new business. Primary focus is on skincare services, and the applicant specializes in providing skincare services for clients that have had problems with scars and stretch marks. Hours of operation for the business are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and the applicant anticipates 4 employees for this business. I forgot to show some street view of the property, just in case you're not familiar. This is the entrance off North Point Parkway for North Point Park. And then this is an aerial of the office condominium development. The definition of spa services does require that the use be separated from other similar uses by 2,000 feet. The applicant's business is located here. Let me step back for a second. This is a spa services map that we maintain of businesses that have gone through the approval for conditional use, or the use is allowed by right on the property. And then we show a bubble which represents the 2,000-foot distance around that particular location. The applicant's proposed location is approximately here. You can see that there are no spa services businesses within 2,000 feet of that location. There was formerly a business in the exact suite that the applicant is looking at. Again, that business has moved on. Of course, looking at the conditional use review criteria, we found that the office park is in compliance with their site access standards, as well as off-street parking, screening buffers, and refuge areas. We also believe the business would be compatible with the surrounding businesses in the office park. As I mentioned, there's other personal service businesses located within this particular office park. The nearest similar spa service business is iNails Alpharetta Salon and Spa. That's located at 7300 North Point Parkway, and that's about 7,400 feet from this location. So the applicant at this location does meet the definition of spa services. This item was shown to the public at the December 13th Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there were no public comments. And then the item was presented to the Planning Commission at their January 4th, 2024 meeting. There were no public comments at that meeting, and Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval subject to the 5 conditions as outlined in the staff report. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Woodman on this item? Thanks, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time? Good evening. If you could speak into the mic. Thank you. And if you don't mind, just give your name and your address for the public record.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Esther Rio. The address is
5755 Northbound Parkway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am a statistician with 11 years experience. In the past year, I find out a lot of women with past surgical problems like scars, mastectomy, was needed for self-esteem improvement. And then I decided to improve that with my own friends, with myself, and I decided to work with women with self-esteem problems like scars, stretch marks, post-surgical procedures to make life easier and more happy for them. And I'm a statistician. Remember, I'm a statistician for 11 years, and I understand how important for women to be happy with themselves. That's why I decided to do the camouflage, they call it stretch mark and scar camouflage, to help cover the scars on post-surgical procedures.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, specifically, I'm working with a woman who had breast cancer. That's my goal, because, of course, when they suffer the mastectomy, they have a wide range of lower self-esteem. That's my goal, to work with women with, of course, I do skin service too, but my future goal is to work with this kind of service.
Do we have any questions for the app? I would just be curious what types of services this is.
Okay, usually women with the scars, anyone, of course, but specifically for women with the scars, this service called camouflage, scar and stretch mark camouflage that cover the scar to even the skin tone of the skin, okay? They call a medical camouflage, medical, it's a term to use. Yeah, of course, specifically with mastectomy or any kind of scars, of course, but specifically with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions?
I don't believe we had any questions from our council.
Okay,
Thank you. Ms. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
No, sir.
However, if there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this matter, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I'd like to offer a motion to approve CU-24-01 Terra Nova Skin Clinics at 5755 North Point Parkway as presented this evening by Michael Woodman.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, and I believe that second was by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. Next item under public hearing will be PH-24-01 Unified Development Code text amendments for the golf course tree removal. Director Cook, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next item is a recommendation from staff to change UDC subsection 3.2.3 exemptions to exempt golf courses from the provisions of the Section 3.2 tree conservation and landscape and buffer requirements, and instead still requires 60-foot minimum canopy. Specifically, the text amendment would exempt golf courses from the city's tree removal permit requirements if the golf course maintains a tree canopy coverage of at least 60%. Changes would not apply to areas outside of the main golf course, such as the permanent structures, parking lots, clubhouses, any kind of guest services, and the change would not apply to trees within the stream buffer and new land development. This is looking at the trees on the main, almost 100% pervious actual course, would not apply at all to anything outside of that. Golf courses would be required to maintain a tree canopy coverage of 60%, and the requirement for single-family homes is 30%, so this would still be double what's required in the canopy coverage that you would have for a single-family lot. And the reason that we looked at these changes is because the golf courses, although they are a commercial use, they're very different from a typical commercial use. So most commercial uses, when they come into the city to remove a tree, it's because it's a safety issue. Maybe it's a tree that died in the parking lot, and they're replacing that tree back where it was. With a golf course, they have to manage shade, moisture tolerances, of course, obstructions, different types of turf grasses. So the way that our current ordinance is written doesn't work well for the golf course and for managing the tree removal and replacement. And I also added a little bit of a change, and this went to the Planning Commission. And at the Planning Commission, it didn't have this area, this sentence that's highlighted here. But I'll go ahead and I'll read the whole thing, and then the highlighted part is what was added. So we're looking at adding number 7, exemptions, and it states, the removal of trees from golf courses that maintain a tree canopy coverage of at least 60%. This exemption shall not apply to development of land or areas previously improved as clubhouse, lodging, guest services, parking lots, or other similar improvements, or removal of trees and buffers and landscape strips. And then I added, however, replacement plantings shall be required where any deficit landscape strips or buffers exist. A master tree removal plan shall be required for arborist approval. The plan may be updated, and removal shall include circumstance for removal that include one of the following: A, turf grass management for existing course; B, course playability, obstruction; or C, safety. And the reason I added the highlighted areas because in looking at some of the landscape strips along the roadways, there could be some trees that have died that could be replaced. So if they are removing a tree, we want to make sure if it can be put back in a landscape strip, that we want it to go in the landscape strip. And this did go to the Planning Commission. They did recommend unanimously to approve. We didn't have any public comments at that meeting. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those for you.
Do we have any questions for Director Cook at this time? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to go ahead and do the first reading?
Please do.
An ordinance by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Article 3 of the Unified Development Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend regulations pertaining to tree conservation, landscape, buffer requirements, exemptions, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this, please come forward now. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. My computer just went out. Hold on. I'm going to go off the paper one. I'd like to go ahead and approve this evening the following, the 3.23 exemptions. Yeah, let me read yours. I got that one. for the first reading of the Unified Development Code under PH-24-01 Development Code Text Amendment Golf Course Tree Removal as presented by Director Cook and read by Attorney Eswine.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, a second by Councilman Hypes, and that is for PH-24-01, first reading of Unified Development Code text amendments as outlined in the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So the next item up on public hearing will be the ordinance for the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget amendment. Director Harris, you have the floor. If you want to go ahead and do the first reading, Ms. Eswine, while he's approaching the dais.
An ordinance by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to adopt a fiscal 2024 budget amendment for certain funds of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, appropriating the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures, adopting the item of revenue anticipation, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harris, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is the first reading of an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024 budget. Most of these items, actually all of these items, were discussed in detail during a presentation at the public at the retreat, and there's been no changes, and I can go into any details if you have questions.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions for Councilman Hypes?
Director Harris, just so I'm clear about how the information is presented, I'm going to use an example. There's a T-SPLOS 1 capital fund project. Looks to be like page 14 of Exhibit A.
15, I think.
And it shows increase in non-allocated funding request, 1.65 million. And I could use this as an example for others. Explain the implication of that. We've got T-SPLOS 1, we've got Tier 1 projects, and we have increase in non-allocated. What does that mean in lay terms?
Well, in this particular instance, we are recognizing the earnings on those funds. We receive about $12 million a year. T-SPLOS 1 has pretty much all the projects have been identified where the projects are going to go. They haven't all been appropriated before you as council because either the contract's not ready to bring forward. But in this case, that T-SPLOS 1 has about $3.5 million left in unallocated that will go towards projects. And Pete, we have those listed projects, but it's...
So the 1.65 increased the total
Correct.
amount available by that
Correct,
amount.
correct.
And as a follow-up question, this may be a question for you or Pete, related to the budget, and that is, are we going to be confined to Tier 1, or are we going to be able to get into Tier 2 projects?
We are able to spend currently on Tier 2 projects, if that was the question, yeah.
And my understanding is we have not decided how additional remaining money will be applied to those Tier 2 projects on T-SPLOS 1?
Director Sisevich, you might need to come help out Director Harris on
Well, he
it.
was looking at him, so I just let him feel that.
You're going to have to ask him. He's not going to come
It's a
up.
toss-up question. I have an interest in having a discussion about a Tier 2 project on T-SPLOS 1, but I didn't know that there would be money available.
So we haven't appropriated all of the funds for our T-SPLOS 1 Tier 1 projects yet. So Old Mill Parkway widening has, we are responsible for the right-of-way acquisition. So there's several $1 million associated with that hasn't been appropriated. There's also Encore Greenway that has not been bid out yet. We're getting ready to. It's the Encore Greenway Park connection. And so then once that project is bid out, that is, I think, the last T-SPLOS 1 project that we have yet to appropriate funds towards.
And going back to the original question, we're looking at $3.5 million in an account here. will that be used up by Tier 1, or will any of that be available for Tier 2?
I believe that it'll be used primarily for the Encore Greenway, which I can't recall if the Greenway connections was a Tier 1 or Tier 2 project.
But it's been identified already?
Yes.
Okay, that answers my question. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Director Harris?
Or Pete.
Or Pete? He got off there quick. All right. Mrs. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone would like to come forward with the budget amendment, now is your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
I read it as the director was coming up to the podium. We did it in a different order.
I forget if I don't have her read it before they get to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that council adopt the first reading of the ordinance of the mayor and council to adopt the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget as presented by Director Harris and ordinance as read by City Attorney Eswine.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Heitz, a second by Councilman Mitchell, to approve the ordinance as read by Ms. Eswine for the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget amendment. Any discussion? Councilman Will.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one point, and we pointed this out at our retreat, that this is the first time in a long, long time that City Council has not increased our budget during the mid-year, and in fact put money back into our funds. So good job, Finance. Y'all are on top of it. That's all I wanted to say.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the ordinance for the mid-year budget amendment as outlined, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So that will wrap up the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We'll move on to new business. First item under new business is 2024 Recycling and Waste Diversion Grant. Director Sisevich, you should have just sat down on the front row, saved yourself some steps.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the 2024 Recycling and Waste Diversion Grant. Public Works has a household hazardous waste collection. We try and do 2 a year. Funds were a little more expensive this current fiscal year to do another one, so we applied for a grant. The grant was due at the end of the year, but due to scheduling, we couldn't get it in front of you guys before then. So we're asking permission to move forward, keep moving forward with it through the application process. If we hear anything, it will be sometime in May. April, May is when we'll hear the time frame. And you just heard that was the part of the mid-year with Tom item. If we get this grant, we would pull that funds that we requested from mid-year out of the mid-year request.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions for Director Sisevich? Well done, sir. Ms. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not.
However, you've got a chance to come forward and speak if you'd like. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion tonight to approve the 2024 Recycling and Waste Diversion Grant presented tonight by Mr. Sisevich.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? Peter, I appreciate you bringing it forward. Sorry we weren't able to meet the original deadline, but hopefully everything will go well from this point forward.
Fingers crossed.
All that being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve the 2024 Recycling and Waste Diversion Grant, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Pete. We appreciate it. And next up, you'll also field the Transportation Alternative Program grant opportunity.
This one's a little different. This is through GDOT, and they have a Transportation Alternative Program grant. TAP is the acronym. And we're looking at requesting funds to go towards the North Point Parkway project. We have matching funds in that account through T-SPLOS. So the idea is that we allocate $1 million towards as a match and request $4 million towards construction. And then the other project is the Alpha Link, which isn't fully funded for design. Only a portion, the concept plan has been funded for design. So we would ask for $250,000 from unallocated to be a match, to then ask for another $1 million to go towards the design of the project.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Councilman Will?
Yeah, Pete, this particular grant, even the one before this, how were these two grants, how did they come about?
So we get emails throughout the program. We get emails from our consultants on different projects that they see coming through. It gives a heads up a little bit here and there. Admin sends us emails as well.
When you
They
say
get
our
things.
consultants, is this the new firm, what we've?
We didn't get this through that firm, but that firm is assisting us with the TAP grant application.
So once we identified it, gave it to them, and then they're rolling?
Yes, we're working with them.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Director Sisevich? Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Ms. Van Horn, any public comment cards?
No, sir.
However, you still have one more chance to speak on this item. Seeing no one, we will close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to approve the consideration of approval for the city staff to apply for the TAP grant through GDOC for either the Alpha Link project and the North Point Parkway Streetscape project, or both projects with the authorization of the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? I'll just say, Pete, I appreciate you bringing it forward once again. Those are both high priorities for the council. I would especially encourage us to try to work on that North Point corridor, and hopefully we'll be able to make some progress on one or both of those projects.
Will do.
Thank you, sir. That being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve the Transportation Alternative Program grant opportunity, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you, Pete. Next item up will be for Mr. Lagerbloom. Contract lobbying services, all called and Fay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council, we just, it was a good lead in on that last item to move to this one. This is really the third leg of the stool we're trying to create as it relates to our grants and grant management and actually pursuit of grants. One of the things that we've never had, and which is extremely helpful when we start to hear questions about are there grants available beyond the state level, is a presence in Washington, D.C. I've had the opportunity to work with Alcalde and Fay before. They're very well connected with the agencies in Washington, very in tune with the grants that exist and are available, and have already approached us with a couple of ideas and opportunities, electrical vehicle charging and some of those types of things that get into a more of a national level. To this point, our participation in Washington has been a request in congressionally directed spending, otherwise known as an appropriation or earmark. Utilizing services like this would cause us to branch out and make a legitimate policy on grants that would be on the bigger scale. If we needed to meet with USDOT on a transportation project for available funding, having a firm like Alcalde and Fay, and specifically Attorney Maurice Kurland in that firm at our disposal, will more than, and we can obviously report on it and check on it, more than bring back to Alpharetta what we paid to buy these services. This is a contract that's cancelable upon a 30-day notice with or without cause by either party. So if we find that we don't get the benefit from them that I think we'll get, it's easy to go a different direction. There would be a flat fee to provide these services of $5,000 a month for as many or as little as we use. And I anticipate we will use their services, at least in grant research and grant applications, well beyond. Again, the return will be bigger than what we invest in if we adopt this contract. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Councilman Will.
The 5,000, is that just a retainer, or do they charge us on top of that if they do other work? How does that work?
No, that is a flat fee for service. So the services are itemized in Part 1 of the contract as to what they do. Part of that will be with grants. Some of that will be just presence in Washington if we have specific focus areas. There will be reports. They will appear before you all and give reports as to the work they've done. But there won't be add-on. It is a fee for service.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
So I'm assuming that we will have meetings with them, or you've already had meetings, or will have meetings with them, identifying our priorities as a council, as was discussed at the council retreat and other sessions. And they'll look for grant opportunities that identify with those.
That is correct. And they even agreed to come and have that session with us at the retreat. And I just said there's just so much on the agenda that we need to push that off until, number one, a contract's adopted, and two, just at a different time. But yes, they will absolutely come and allow you to direct what that legislative agenda is with their assistance as being connected in Washington.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lagerblum.
Thank you.
Ms. Van Horn, do we have any other public comment cards?
We do not, sir.
However, you have an opportunity to speak about this item if you choose. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to approve the consideration for a contract agreement for professional services between the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, and Alcade and Fay Limited, with an authorization for the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Will, and that was to approve the contract for lobbying services with Alcade and Fay. Any discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Mr. Lagerblum for, ever since you've come, you've added as a focus of our city's efforts to include the federal funding that's available. And before, because we thought it might be too complex or it would take forever to receive those grants, we didn't really actively pursue those as much as we should have and could have. And so I think you're doing a great job as far as including that in our focus. And I think if we get one federal grant from this, it will probably pay for itself in 1 year. So this is great. If we can get projects funded on a federal level, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll just second that. I think that Alpharetta is a much different city than we were 20, 30 years ago, and we are dealing and competing with cities much larger than us, and many of these projects are to support infrastructure projects and quality of life projects. So I do think there are opportunities, and I think for us to be methodical, not to just go out there and, play things loose to see if we can find any money falling out of trees, but to be intentional about addressing our priorities with the funding available through already established programs is a great opportunity for us. So thank you for bringing it forward. That being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve the contract with Alcade and Fay, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. Are we missing someone? Councilman Will. And it did pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting, and we'll move on to the work session items. First item under work session is the community project funding congressionally directed spending for the fiscal year 2022 grant for downtown bus shelters. Director Cook, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, would you mind if I just offered a quick comment before Director Cook speaks?
I do not mind.
Thank you, sir.
Please take the floor.
We've been holding this for a little while, and we just really need some direction. I want to highlight, though, because we just talked about Washington, D.C. and highlighted about grant opportunities. I want to highlight that this was an application we made for a congressionally directed spending grant, which is in that earmark model. Those do come with required matches. And so when we made that application, we knew or should have known that it was going to require this match. We just need to now know if the dollar value of what we would receive is worth the expense that we have to pay to get there. And with that, I just wanted to highlight that difference, since we just talked about going to Washington and looking for money. They don't all come with this type of a significant match. So with that,
That's a good point.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Cook.
So Mayor and Council, this is discussion of the grant for downtown bus shelters, specifically 3 within the downtown. And staff had applied for this back in 2021, and the reason we applied for this is this is something that's been put on the capital budget in the past. It hasn't been approved as part of the budget through the years, and we had been working with the CID for them to create a bus shelter program. But the bus shelter program only provides means for businesses within the CID overlay to apply and put in bus shelters, and they're spending about $45,000 to $60,000 per bus shelter. So we applied specifically for downtown bus shelters, so since we knew that there was not a separate way to fund those through other sources. And the funding that we received from Congresswoman Lucy McBath's office was $150,000 was the award. But with that, as Chris stated, there is a match. So we had a 25% match, and there's also design costs as well as a $10,000 oversight fee that we must pay to GDOT. So the match with $150,000 for the city would be $123,600 would be the required match. And I will also state that, you know, the design fee that you see in there for $76,000, that was probably a high bid, but we went to try to get a bid that we didn't want to have to come back and say it's actually more expensive. So if this is approved, we would actually there'd be a competitive bid process to make sure that we get the best price. So the $76,000 for design services, $76,100 may be higher than what we actually receive, so the cost could be lower. And then we also have picked out, and this is just initially picked out what the shelter would look like. So this is the shelter that we're looking at for the downtown, and this is the one that we priced as part of that grant request. And as far as seating on the inside, there's different options for seating. You can look at individual pedestal seats versus benches. So there's multiple options that we could look at as part of the seating. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Councilman Hypes and Councilman Will.
Director Cook, if we didn't have federal funding and we were just ourselves as a city to put up the bus shelters, do we know what they would cost, each one would cost?
We estimated $45,000 to $60,000 per installation, and we arrived at that cost from asking Kimley Horn what they were spending for the bus shelters within the CID's overlay area. So it could be anywhere from $135,000 to $180,000 for 3 shelters.
So if I'm doing the math correct, I just took the 123,600 divided by 3. That would be a cost to our residents of 41,200 each, which would be less, potentially significantly, than the number you just mentioned if we did it without the grant, the match. And how do you feel about the 123,600? Do you feel relatively certain that's the high water number, or will those costs per bus shelters come down if we proceed down this line?
The actual cost of the bus shelter will not come down, but the price for the design could come down.
Okay.
So yes, we believe that this is a good estimate.
And I'm looking for the design. The design number is the
76,100, and that's to meet GDOT's guidelines, because although this is along the roadway, you still have an environmental study that's required as part of that. Now, the environmental study may be one paragraph, not much of a study, but you still have to have that as part of the request.
Well, given that this is a work session, I know that we're trying to integrate with potential BRT and expansion, and so this obviously would be a step in that direction with the global picture for public transportation. And if we can get 3 bus shelters at a price per shelter less than what we would do without this grant, then I would think it's a good idea to move forward if you're looking for direction.
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Will.
Director Cook, what happens if, in theory, the design work comes back at 25,000, which is 50,000 less than we're budgeting, which means we're not going to spend all of the money that's been allocated for this, both on our part and the government's part? Does their contribution go down?
No.
So so they're going to give us 150, but it requires a match. But if we don't spend it,
25% match, so we still have the 37,500.
right, so my point is, though, if the 75 comes down, their contribution is going to come off of the 150 because we're not spending that much money.
The 150, we have the 25% match on top of the 150. The 150 is a set price. So what could come down is the 76,100, the engineering fees.
Right.
So if that comes down, that's just part of our match.
So we don't have to match the full thing then?
Correct. Only a 25% match.
So up to 25 or 25?
25.
So again,
Well, we will
maybe
be-
I'm not saying it correctly.
That's a fixed amount, the 37.5.
We can't, though. That's my point. If they're putting 150 in and we have to match it with 125, that's 275,000.
And I probably presented that incorrectly. The only thing we're required to match is the 37,500. But we also, their price does not include design services. So the 76,100 is for the engineering design. So if that price comes back and it's only 25,000, then there's a $50,000 savings.
And so our portion would go down to $12,000, essentially, because we have to match 37. No, we have to match 37. Okay.
The 37,500, that's fixed, as well as the up to 10,000 for GDOT oversight. The other costs could come down. The 76,100 could come
Have we
down.
ever built bus stops like this in Alpharetta?
Have we built them?
Yeah.
I'd have to ask Pete. Have we built a bus shelter? We have.
So is it
When
similar? Is it similar to this one we're designing and building now?
Pete, you want to come forward and help us out on this, just so we can hear you a little better?
Yeah, I think the difference on the windward is there's not the center post in there. So it's open all across.
And when we built that, when did we build that last bus shelter?
2 years ago?
2 years ago? Do you remember what it cost to build?
The low bid on that one was, it was embedded with the Windward Triple Lefts project, so it's not a fair comparison because of the overall bid for the whole entire project, but I think it was around 50 is what my guess is. But it was already designed, so we just installed it.
Okay, that's it.
Councilman Mitchell.
Ms. Cook, I'm all for bus shelters, but I'd like to get them as cheaply as we can. This shelter that fits the downtown aesthetic, what else is there to design? We're gonna buy these shelters. They're already prefab, and so what is there? I know there's some environmental aspect to it, but what else is it besides pouring a slab and putting it on?
Well, there's surveys, because you have utilities underground. You also have to, there could be grading in some areas. If you look at the Norcross Street, it's kind of a hill going up to the cul-de-sac. So there could be grading as part of that in order to put the concrete slab.
And is that something that we could not, since Pete is here as well, could not do in-house since we have so many engineers on staff?
Yes. Could we design it in-house? Yes. However, since we're receiving federal funds, we must follow the Georgia Department of Transportation's plan development plan process, which requires us to get many environmental studies, go through a structural analysis. I don't have structural engineers. Basically, everything I have to do for a roadway project, I have to do for a bus shelter except the traffic study.
Wow. I'm all for it. In the downtown area where we have such a concentration of service workers who come into our city, and it pains me to see them out in the rain when they're waiting 20 minutes or more for a bus. If there's any way we can get a low bid on this design services, I'm all forward with moving forward with federal dollars for it. We need more of these in our city, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. Ms. Van Horn, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak on bus shelters, now is your chance to do so. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, this is just a workship item tonight. So
Oh, that's right. I'm
acting,
sorry.
but I am going to look to see if I could get some direction. And I think the direction I'm receiving is that let's bring this forward and consider it at an evening meeting and let it go up or down based upon that. But there is a desire I'm getting a sense there's a desire for me to bring it back for a vote. So we'll just, unless there's objection to that, that's what we will do.
That sounds reasonable to me, based on the conversations we've had this evening. So that'll wrap up work session item. Thank you, Director Cook.
Thank you.
And now, if you've been sitting here waiting for your opportunity to make a public comment, you have your opportunity to come forward one last time. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. Do we have any reports this evening? Councilman Hypes. God bless you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to report in our meeting here that today we dedicated the opening of the pickleball courts at North Park. We've got 12 brand-new pickleball courts. It is an absolutely beautiful facility, and we had a nice gathering of folks, and want to thank Director Rogers, Rex and Park Department, and all the other many people who were instrumental in making that happen. And it's a great amenity for Alpharetta. So, I think we all desire to enhance our quality of life and bring community together, and this is another great example. So between North Park and Webbridge Park, which has 4 courts, we have a total of 16 pickleball courts available to our residents. And so, many thanks to Rex and Park and all the other unsung heroes who made that happen.
Any other reports this evening? I'll just note for the record that I thought our retreat last week was fantastic. It was great to see us coming together as a new council with a new council member under Mr. Lagerbloom and our staff's direction. It was a great trip to see a very intriguing mixed-use development down at Trillith, if you're not familiar with it. Most of the Marvel movies have been made down there, and they've got millions of square feet of actual movie studio space, which was an interesting anchor for a mixed-use development. And there were some good takeaways from there. They've used some interesting zoning and some interesting housing mixes down there. So I appreciate coming out of that with clear direction from our leadership team, and I appreciate the efforts of our staff to help make sure these things actually come to fruition over the next 12 months. But that being said, I believe we need to have an executive session this evening. Mr. Lagerbloom, would you like to?
Yes, sir, we do. Litigation, land acquisition tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to recess into executive session?
Motion to recess to executive session.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilman Will. All those in favor of recessing into executive session, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. We will see you in a little while. Test 1, 2. All right, gentlemen, do we have a motion to reconvene?
Motion to reconvene.
Have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Will to reconvene the city council meeting. All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. We are reconvened. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Will. We have a second by Councilman Mitchell. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please vote yes. Yep. And it is unanimous. Thank you, everyone.